two great gentlemen who are joining our discussion, Alan Kalton from Pharma. Hi, Alan. How are you?
Hi there, Daria. Nice to see you. Nice to see everybody.
And from overseas, we have Mark Miller from Deloitte. Mark, same question to you, the toughest one. How are you today?
I'm decent. Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Fantastic. So let's deep dive into the discussion. Our first topic is bringing together MBA and omnichannel strategy. And as we all know, in a recent survey of 50 pharma executives, only 53% said they were successfully optimizing engagement across different touchpoints. Alan, how this has been from your experience, and how are your customers successfully integrating MBA programs with their overall omnichannel strategy?
Well, that's a great question to lead off with, Dario. And I think we have to recognize that for much of the last decade, NBA has been very much an experimental or innovation capability, and it's been introduced at scale only by the very few and focused primarily on optimizing productivity in the sales channel. So that leap to an omni-channel agenda where you're really delivering at scale as part of the commercial model does cut across a number of very significant organizational, process, technical, and data challenges. And if we think about kind of the traditional value chain from data to technology to analytics to insights, a strategy that dominates an investment in any one of these areas will actually limit your ability as an organization to realize real progress. And it also ignores the most essential part of the equation that NBA is seeking to achieve, and that is that activation really stimulates the behavioral change, and that's fundamental to success. So to your question, the clients that we're working with, the making the most progress, are starting with the landscape of the here and now and focusing on creating that engagement and stimulating the behavioral change across sales, across marketing and medical teams. And that really has an effect of not just validating that NBA is real and something they can accomplish, but it engages the organization and then provides the right spotlight on prioritizing where investments need to happen to improve the data landscape, to improve the ability to generate insight through analytics, and does that from a results orientation. And of course, this is an essential part of the omni-channel strategy because that's all consuming. And from an organizational perspective, the transition of NBA 4 or 5 years ago, where it was an experiment or an innovation done with a very limited set of stakeholders. Now, when you're looking at that kind of global ambition, you introduce a lot of complexity and stakeholder alignment, IT, analytics, commercial excellence, sales, marketing, medical, all necessary in that decision process. And of course, that's now not just locally, but also from a regional and global perspective. And without experience on the ground, it can turn into a very, very long decision process. And I guess finally, one of the other limitations is the legacy of technical investment in very limited channel enablement. Sometimes that localized development of capability can become that technical barrier if it cannot rise to the scale challenge and the focus and only brings a focus on a subset of channels. And that can distract considerably, as the real challenge with omni-channel is moving from a reframing of the inside out channel dominated approach towards much more of an outside in HCP experience. So
thanks a lot, Alan. Same question to you, Mark.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring it to life via specific examples. So, I work with a lot of multinational clients, and NBA is the dominant initiative across every single client, and it's largely because of restricted HCP access, channel fragmentation, and the fact that all HCPs want more nuanced messaging. But accomplishing this requires that you align data, technology, analytics, strategy, and most importantly, get sales and marketing to work together. And that isn't always easy. Getting capabilities to work in harmony but aligned to the business is critical. So I'll probably start with, a hypothetical brand objective. A brand might have the goal to drive active prescribers, and to increase the sphere of influence, which is essentially the extended staff, with the goal of driving increased prescribing in certain patient groups and advocacy. So, if that's one business objective, what is the role of NBA to support? Because a brand might have adoption ladders, headroom segmentation, but what are those micro segmentations that guide what content to give through what channel? If the goal is to engage with HCPs based on the profile of patients under their care, because that ultimately dictates the services HCPs can provide to patients, how do you accomplish that by bridging patient and HCP data together? If the goal is to increase sphere of influence, that's very much account-based selling, where you have to get HCPs within a network to talk to each other. How do you accomplish that? Not just with respect to integrated data, but very sophisticated business rules that reinforce communications within a practice. A next best engagement solution might push recommendations to the field, but how do those recommendations that invariably are driven off a priori business rules and data science algorithms, how do they align to the constraints of the field? If you don't address those constraints, reps are just going to dismiss the suggestions. A lot of talk around NBA driving modular content. Well, just because you can do it doesn't mean you do it. What's the business value and how do you deal with med legal? So the point I'm trying to make is NBA isn't always just about capabilities. Clients invariably have a lot of capabilities in place. It's how does everything work together and how do you demonstrate to the brand and sales that it's going to make their lives easier? Just wanted to give you that example.
Yeah, and I guess after all, if you really take the NBA story forward, it's not just about creating that efficiency and effectiveness and execution, but it's also creating that agility, as you say, Mark, in really the development and deployment of a brand strategy.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot. Let's continue with the next topic, which is budget allocation for insights and analytics. Very interesting one. Over the last year or so, we have observed a big uptick in resource investment for internal insights and analytics teams, right? But where are your customers focusing their efforts, and what's going well, and where are they struggling? And I suggest this time maybe we can start with you, Mark.
Yeah, so insights and analytics as a capability is pretty broad. It can mean many things to many different people. There could be behavioral-based segmentation, analytics to inform channel affinity, channel effectiveness, analytics to inform content affinity, content effectiveness. Everybody wants to be able to measure incremental script lift, so there's a huge focus on closed-loop measurement. If the goal is to create sense and response engagement, how does analytics allow you to mine the behavioral data to identify signals that might be proxies for where an HCP might be in the journey? What's the role of analytics and data to inform longitudinal program design, especially when you are looking at marketing to complement or supplement field efforts? So all of these analytic efforts, and by the way, you need very, very clear business requirements. It requires that companies think about the data layer, the analytics workbench, and how to integrate back-end solutions with front-end applications like Viva or Marketing Cloud or Adobe. So in big pharma, we're seeing a massive, massive move towards bringing a lot of the NBA componentry in-house. And for mid-cap and small pharma, they want to be able to do what big pharma does, but within the constraints of their budgets. So the specific investment areas that we are privy to, not to say it's a truth for all clients. Number one, a lot of focus on data strategy, data management, and a common data model to support multiple brands, multiple therapeutic areas, and the ability to scale globally. If the data layer is not in place, it's gonna be tough to engage in all downstream efforts. Again, a huge focus on building data science teams in-house, but again, really understanding where it makes sense to build versus where it makes sense to rent, because a lot of vendors out there have some very, very good data science algorithms and methodologies that should be weaved within a client's environment. A huge area of investment is around governance and ops models, really standardizing the way people work, the way data moves, the way data models are used, the way dashboards are developed. with universal application. A lot of focus around smart PMOs within IT. The idea that the ability to roll out, to flex, to adjust, because again, nothing is static. You have to be able to automate a lot of the PMO efforts. Another big area is around centers of excellences or universal service capability areas that support the brands, because you need to rethink the way brand planning is done, from strategy, design, execution to measurement. If the business needs proceed tech, the business is going to get frustrated. So it's very important that business, tech, analytics all work in harmony. And the last big area is around closed loop measurement, the ability to link scripts to specific tactics. In the US, relatively straightforward, because you can link to specific HCPs. In countries like Germany and Italy, you can link scripts to hospital networks. So how do you attribute sales to HCPs? So again, the point I'm trying to make is, all these capabilities have to work in harmony, and investments are being made in these specific areas. I know I've talked a lot. Alan, I'll let you jump in.
Yeah, I mean, I want to echo some of the areas we've seen our clients placing significant resources and significant investments, and certainly, improving the quality of data and the quality of data management practices, whether that's related to efficiencies or compliance or just driving better connectivity from a global perspective. That's certainly an area of real investment. And of course, the investment in data scientists, looking for those unique algorithms, those differentiating capabilities that really shape potentially innovative ways of identifying new target segments, engaging with those segments, understanding their preferences, etc. But I think the challenge that we've seen is that true NBA needs, as you say, needs to be integrating those capabilities across the board. And in reality, if you make those individual investments, you still need to think very carefully about how do you integrate the results of those analytics? How do you integrate the new data that you have available to you? How do you integrate across from a global, regional, or local basis? And then how do you optimize across those different investments? And I think those, by integrating and optimizing across those investments, understanding the context, understanding the channels, understanding the limitations of those channels, and then orchestrating effectively across the multiple channels that are those touch points with your HCPs is really a tremendous challenge. And that's something where I think from Actana's perspective, we've seen our business has evolved to really play a very crucial role in that integration, that orchestration, and that optimization space. And I think that's really, it's a really interesting focus for us. And, recognizing it can't really be an ivory tower exercise where, either data management or the best analytical models are developed in isolation. The results are with the end users using them, the activation, the use of those recommended actions to actually stimulate engagement with HCPs and stimulate decisions by HCPs through meaningful impact.
Thanks a lot, Alan. Next one, pivoting to an important topic, which is field team experience. And as you know, most probably 50% of pharma executives believe their ability to engage with physicians has increased over the past 2 years, right? So what are some of more effective strategies you have seen or employed to get the field on board with an intelligent engagement solution? Alan? Let's speak from the Actana perspective, and of course.
My goodness, this is an interesting area, and we've been in this business for 12 years, and I think the fundamentals are you can get more and more complex with the algorithms you use, with the quality of data that you bring in, and the interpretation of that data. But really, that technology is all underpinning a behavioral change, and therefore, a critical focus always needs to be on simplicity and engagement with the end user. And I think that's just fundamental to success in any of the programs that we've been involved with, is maintaining this as something that is simple, that is engaging, and reinforcing the right new behaviors as part of a journey rather than a big bang approach. I think that journey, this is a partnership, this is a journey that you're going on where again, like any other behavioral change in life, it takes time to embed in the right new behaviors, to reinforce them, and to build that in. And that really applies to field representatives, to those responsible for sales and marketing strategy, and also for those involved in the medical affairs side of the business that are entering into the fray of understanding how NBA can affect how they execute and how they coordinate with their commercial colleagues. For customers, we find that do this well, that transparency engagement is involved up front, having really good, sensible conversations with individual field representatives, understanding their pain points, understanding what matters to them, and what things are going to really help them to see value from an NBA solution up front, getting them involved in that requirements process, starting to build that trust, getting them involved in testing the system, and then building champions that advocate and demonstrate the good behaviors of adoption going forward. Those are just fundamental to the success here. And again, I'll just go back to the concept that, building that trust is based on simplicity. That simplicity is based on being really focused on things that really matter. And yes, you can build complex algorithms. Yes, you can build complex omni-channel strategy that comes out of this. But unless you build that trust up front, again, you're not optimizing your success.
Thanks a lot, Alan. Mark, same question for you.
Yeah, sales reps should be viewed and treated just as we do customers like HCPs. We have to make their lives easier. We have to instill a level of trust, meaning that we have to get them to buy into new ways of working. And any NBA solution rollout or refinement has to involve the field, especially when field engagement and sales disposition data is so critical to getting a more nuanced understanding of an account or an HCP, or creating more informed, actionable next best engagement recommendation. It's very critical. So, to Alan's point, simplicity is critical. We have to help reps make the right choice that's an easy choice. So as an example, if reps, schedule a face-to-face appointment, and sometimes the appointment's scheduled 2 months in advance because that's just how long it takes. Perhaps don't recommend virtual details, but think about headquarter-driven communications to support the face-to-face engagement. If we're going to be bringing more nuanced data into a rep dashboard that gives them a view into accounts and HCPs, how do we visualize things so that reps get it? Understand that reps are people, and UX design within the application layer is critical. So you can't just push out a laundry list of complicated recommendations. You have to make it easy for those recommendations to be adopted. I mean, if you're dealing with an oncology product that has multiple indications and you have different sales teams targeting the same docs with different messaging, how do rules consolidate messaging and align to the multi-tumor treaters? If next best engagement informed by robust data, if that data is dynamic and the rules are dynamic, think about the field reps who don't always like for things to be changed weekly, all the time. So, what you can do versus with what you should do is very important. So all of this needs to be considered as we think about rep adoption. Reps are critical. And alternate channels, whether it's headquarter email, paid media, it's to complement and supplement field efforts. And in the white space, that's where alternate channels marketing can take more of a dominant role, but really have to work with the field force team. Just my perspective.
Yeah, interesting. Reps are always and will be always important, right?
Yeah.
Which leads me to the final topic. Let's speak about coordinating engagement strategies across commercial, sales, marketing, together with medical teams or medical affairs. This is certainly a very hot topic. As you know, there's been a long-standing firewall between commercial and medical affairs, but today's HCP expect a seamless customer experience where both teams operate in much more coordinated ways, responsive ways, right? So how are you seeing pharma companies adopt this shift, and how can medical affairs in pharma embrace tech and processes used by the commercial side of the business? Mark, would you please start first?
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting one because, I'm working across a number of pharma clients, and essentially four of them involve commercial and medical working together. There's always going to be firewalls, but, medical wants to embrace omni-channel solutions that have typically been, the domain of their commercial counterparts. They want to embrace these solutions to have more informed conversations. The MSLs and the CAMs detailing KOLs or academic institutions. How can consolidated data and business rules create a more informed engagement? Whether it's helping to message optimal use of therapeutics, or accelerating access to the right treatment through scientific education, or promoting the scientific exchange and gaining safety insights. Communicating all of that messaging through the MSLs, complemented by marketing. That is what medical is looking to do. And granted, there are constraints in the type of data you can use. There are constraints in the business rules you're allowed to adopt. And there are going to be constraints in, what you can and cannot measure. But again, the underlying data models, the data features, the data science algorithms, the workflows, the integration with downstream applications, it's all the same. So yeah, they're going to be firewalls in terms of how you work, but the underlying infrastructure absolutely can be shared, again, with logical and physical firewalls. But the industry is moving in this direction, at least in the medical side. Alan, I don't know what you're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think that there's a couple of interesting points here. I think one of the critical points is that medical affairs themselves. And apologies, my battery power was just running out. I'm just plugging back in. The medical affairs are really intrinsic to the HCP perception of the customer, of the company, and the portfolio that the company is promoting. So an omni-channel strategy cannot really exist without a recognition of how important not just medical engagement is, but how important it is to become that as that part of the broader HCP experience. And I think what we've seen certainly over the last 18 months is a really strong interest in how connecting the dots from an omni-channel perspective and from an NBA strategy perspective becomes that bridge to empowering the medical affairs side of the organization. Obviously, it's a information-rich area, and making the best out of such a wide variety of information is essentially part of the value proposition that's required by the medical teams. And where better in an organization is there access to such a variety of information that where you really need to distill those critical insights to make effective decisions. Clearly, we've seen many companies investing more in medical affairs and building more in field-based medical teams, and really looking to drive efficiency and effectiveness of those teams as they engage with HCPs in the right way. And of course, NBA can help to reinforce that, perhaps through not direct recommendations, but perhaps through the insights around the relevant interest of the key opinion leaders they're engaging with. And then finally, to Mark's point, the whole concept of technology here that can coordinate and control information flows can be really additive to the compliance picture, ensuring that the right rules are in place that really maximize the value of connectivity and also ensure compliance as the basis for cross collaboration. So I think there's a really interesting positioning here where from a broader HCP omni-channel space, integrating and thinking about how that interaction with medical teams is just such an intrinsic part of the HCP experience.
Thanks a lot, Alan. We received an interesting anonymous question, which I will read, and this is: what are some ways that pharma companies who have invested heavily in their own analytics or internal MBA programs are working with other technology partners to see the greater impact from their internal efforts? Who would like to go first, gentlemen?
You go.
Yeah, sure. I can make a few comments here because you see, and we talked about this a little while ago, that there are some substantial investments being made in, let me call out specifically data science and the algorithmic development around propensity models, attribution models, or dynamic segmentation models. And there's some really cool value that's being created. The technology partnership we're finding as a result of that with our clients is that we can help to translate that into something that's truly a scalable asset and something that can be deployed as a way of integrating the results of those models and then optimizing for the relevant channels and orchestrating the recommendations across the channels that really surround the HCP. And I think that partnership is one that is becoming a much more profound part of the way organizations are choosing to invest in the broader omni-channel enablement and the broader NBA strategy.
Mark?
Yeah, I'll just give you, one or two specific examples based on current engagements, working with clients, underlying data brought into the Snowflake environment, all of the analytics done within a Data IQ or Databricks analytic workbench. All of the recommendations are fed into SFA and marketing applications, be it Viva or Adobe or Salesforce Marketing Cloud. And, you can have in-house data science teams, you can work with outside vendors, and everybody can develop the most brilliant data science algorithms and pair it up with very sophisticated business rules. But it's the ability to scale and productionalize and move quickly. If you have a new therapeutic area, how do you spin out that algorithm, test, get buy-in from field in 1 month, not 3 to 6 months? So, a lot of technology partners are in place, but, really understanding the end goals important. As an example, Deloitte works with a lot of clients to internalize a lot of the tech stack, but, orchestration and, the complexity and the sophisticated business rules, that is not easy, which is why people look to firms like Octana to essentially facilitate that orchestration layer that sits on top of the data and the client's in-house data science workbench. So again, many technology options. Do what's right for you in terms of what fits within your environment, but just make certain that everything's done with scalability in mind. Just my perspective.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Mark. Another question which we received is, in your experience, what are reasonable expectations for both users, adoption, and impact when implementing a new MBA program? And what are some examples of KPIs that you have proven to be the most useful for your customers? Who would like to take this?
Alan, do you want to go first, and then I'll jump in?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I think the establishing KPIs is a critical part of the success of any program, and certainly when it comes to NBA, understanding what you're trying to achieve and the time scale by which you want to achieve that is a really important part of setting yourself up for success. When we look advising our clients in terms of the most relevant KPIs, there's kind of three big areas we look at. The first one is recognizing this is about behavioral change, and recognizing that engagement is a fundamental part of that. So, if this is done well, this adds tremendous value to the use of the CRM platform. And therefore, that daily engagement that you can stimulate by giving somebody recommendations and advice on an ongoing basis is very much part of the behavioral change you want to measure. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to have everybody accepting everything you say, because you can learn a lot if you have the right platform, if you have the right AI that builds in and creates that learning environment. You can learn a lot from people dismissing those suggestions as much as you can learn from people accepting and actioning them, as long as you continue to learn from that. So that engagement is a really critical part of understanding kind of the first impact of NBA. The second one is thinking about what you want to actually inspire, because this is certainly in an omni-channel context, you're inspiring an HCP to move on their own journey of understanding of your product and the positioning of your product and the use of your product with particular patients. And so understanding how they're reacting to the stimulation that you're creating with them through the channels that you're engaging, and understanding how they're behaving differently, understanding their experience and modeling and understanding their satisfaction associated with the way you're orchestrating your engagement with them is a fundamental piece of this. And then, of course, linked to that then is, are they behaving differently? Are you able to achieve better results for your company and certainly for the patients which you serve, in terms of patients, days of therapy, dollars, etc. And I think that's, those three areas: engagement, understanding the value to the customer, and understanding the return on investment, are the fundamental principles of key performance indicators that we focus on.
Fantastic. So we went out of time. Thanks a lot, Mark and Ellen, for joining this great conversation. We will publish that particular session also on our official YouTube channel, so make sure you subscribe. And thanks a lot, and hopefully seeing you in Dubrovnik next year.
All right. Thanks so much, Dario. Appreciate the time. Cheers, Mark.
Cheers, Alan. Bye, Dario. Bye, everyone.